What's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. Book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father at Amazon, Kindle, and Create Space. A link will be in the description box below as usual. This video is entitled It's Not Like Racism. How can I say this? Happy Thanksgiving. I ain't cooking. I can make a few videos. I'm gonna go work out, clean up. I'm gonna hit these streets and get me some food. Yeah, as I said it. I'm mooching. That's right. Uh, but because of the current things that I've saw or have seen, I just wanted to make a video. I wanted to make these yesterday, but I was too tired, about how everything isn't like racism. A lot of times people like to create an equivalent to racism for their own nefarious purposes. And I have issues with that, because what winds up happening is, and I'm gonna talk from like a black male point of view. What winds up happening is you get groups of people who on one end say racism doesn't really exist, or everything, or these situations have nothing to do with racism, and turn around and be a complete hypocrite and say whatever happens to them in their life and situation is just like racism. And it's not. Because when you see something happen with black people, you're like, oh, that's not racism, that's this, that's that. But then something happens to you, you turn around. It reminds me of how I feel like I'm getting treated like I'm black people. What? And technology keeps exposing this hypocrisy because people keep doing this. You have non-black people who will tell black people that, racism doesn't really exist while they're benefiting off of racism. You have people using affirmative action and then telling black people they were only hired because of affirmative action. One affirmative action was really originally meant for black men, because we dealt with the racism on the job. So now you want to get ahead by saying it's we're not qualified when we were being held out because we were black, not because we weren't qualified. And that still goes on to this day. That's how people are quote unquote overqualified, right? Or people who have the same qualifications but two different names or two different races have an issue getting a job. But then you want to benefit off of that, and then say when you deal with something on the very same job, you use race to get ahead on. Now you deal with something on that job and you say, oh, it's racist. So you can't be an opportunist with racism and then call out racism. That's why people don't take a lot of people seriously. Same thing with sexism. You have women who actually use their sexuality to get ahead, and then turn right around and say, you guys are being sexist. And it's just like racism. We're not using our blackness to get ahead in society and then turning around and saying, yo, that's racist. People can make examples if they try to about that. I can see that though, but that is not our we can't get ahead doing that. Especially as a black man, I can't go around and say, hey, I'm a black man and I'm gonna use the stereotype of black manhood and masculinity to get over, and then turn around and say racism held me back. It's not really gonna go well for us, right? Because most of our stereotypes are negative. Other people's stereotypes aren't necessarily negative, and they don't strike fear into other people or put people's guards up. So that's why I'm saying it like that. So that's what I mean by like the sexism thing. You got women sleeping their way to the top and women who are working their way to the top. but but the women who are working their way to the top can't really call out the women that are sleeping their way to the top because they're in the minority. And then they run around, and then these women run around and say, oh, it's sexism. And you're like, oh, you was proud to be Monica Lewinsky, and now you're a victim. Okay. But it's just like racism. No, it's not. No, it's not. Just like people want their stereotypes. And what I mean by that is, the black stereotype is a criminal stereotype, right? But the irony about that is, white criminality is just entertainment. It's based in reality, but it's entertainment. You can be a white crooked officer, CIA agent, FBI agent, drug dealer, a car thief, embezzler, and all that. It's just, you can be a Hispanic cartel member, and this is why I say it's not like racism, because you can be a Asian intellect and / triad member, type, and you can be an Arab business owner / gun dealer, and nobody says a word. Sex trafficker, not a big deal, right? But if you're black, all these big crackdowns, there isn't like a unit that says, these black guys have these criminal enterprises that they're infiltrating these white, Hispanic, Asian, and Arab neighborhoods and dropping drugs and guns and snatching up women and selling them off as sex trafficking, and they're just sitting there behind owning businesses and treating people badly. And they're in the police department and the FBI and the CIA participating in covering this up. But everybody else does it, and it's just the American way. So that's why I say it isn't like racism, because that's not looked at as a bad thing. Same thing with the crack era and now the heroin era, opioid era. Lock them up, lock them up, lock them up. They need counseling, they need help. Can we just get Jimmy high over there in the corner? Don't arrest him. Make sure he's comfortable when he leans back and drops his head like that. Because it's not like racism. People are coddled, in their situation. The same thing happens even with our own women. They deal with racism, absolutely, but they don't deal with it like us men do. And the reason I say that is because even when it comes to employment, women will tell you, I'm a double minority. See, black men can't tell you I'm a double minority. You get what I'm saying? Like, I can't say I'm going to get a job because I'm a man and because I'm black. And black women just going to have to, yeah. That's why that's not, like I said, it's not the same. It's not like racism, You don't see black 12, you saw the black 12-year-old girl, or 12-year-old girl, I think, get rolled up by the police out in Dallas. Then you saw the black 12-year-old boy get shot in 2 seconds in Ohio. That's the difference. Everybody was mad about the girl, the boy. They was trying to make excuses why they murdered him, right? That's why it's not the same. We talk about things like how can I say this properly? Finance, the economics of this country. Really, the number one export in this country, I believe, is still music. The biggest genre of music is hip hop, black form of music, basically. So, America's either number one or number two biggest global export is something predominantly done by black men. That says something. If that's a predominantly biggest export, that's beating a lot of things like automotives, electronics, like mostly everything in the STEM field is getting beat by black men making music. That's crazy. So one of the best things that America has to offer is black male artistry. Everything else, second fiddle. But we don't create. We don't create things in the STEM fields as much as everybody else. But I guess we're creating enough, you know. But we always looked at it as the bottom of the barrel, you know. If somebody else was producing the number one export or the number two export, then they would be like the dopest group in America, right? You know, I'm just saying, like, pick a group, you know. If Tejano was the biggest export in America, every Hispanic be like, we number one, you know. If they had some Asian tech company was the biggest export in America, we see what we did, you know. Same thing. If women had created a makeup line that was the biggest export in the country, you see how we killing it, you know. So it's not the same. Also, I'm trying not to be super serious. One of the other things that we got to take into consideration is, like I said earlier, when it happens to you, it's not, or when it happens to us, it's not racism. But when it happens to you, it's an equivalent to racism. Here's the problem with that hypocrisy. Black men can't say it's just like something else, because is racism. Like, if something happens to a white male, a female, a Hispanic, an Asian, a Native American, or somebody homosexual, we can't. You're treating me like them. No, everybody says they get treated like us. We're not saying that we're getting treated like them. So that's why it's not the same. We don't, you know, you try to get people who play this game like it's the same when it's not, and everybody knows it, because everybody, like I said before, has this opportunistic way of jumping in and jumping out when it's convenient. And why it isn't the same is because black men don't have the opportunity to jump in and out of being black when it's convenient for them to get ahead, or us to get ahead. It don't work like that. So to me, racism isn't the same as everything else, because everybody benefits from the pros and cons of their group, and they don't have to deal with the same things as we do. You don't see groups of women getting shot as children in the world saying it's okay, by law enforcement at that. You don't see other groups of children get miseducated and disrespected by their teachers because they're black boys. At a child's age, they're not encouraged to be smart. They're actually discouraged to be smart. You don't see that. You don't see other groups not hired because they are black men. You get what I'm saying? And when guys are hired, you don't see on the job how people let other people not work. They work. They don't have to work hard. They don't have to work at all. We don't want to overload them. You can do all of their work for them. Y'all get paid the same, but you're gonna do all of your work and half of theirs. They can't. You know, that's the reality of it, right? And you don't see other people's life and happiness discarded because people are socialized to feel like other people's lives and happiness are more important than ours. And hopping on that opportunism, other people can do that. We can't. You know what I'm saying? We're not socialized to make white men, white women, black women, Hispanic, Asian, gays lives that live in hell, and just say you're supposed to take it because you're not like me. Like we don't. That's why it's not the same. And at the end of the day, people don't want to admit this, but everybody plays this in and out game because they can, because it's accepted, because this is how everybody else gets down. So, it is what it is. So when people compare their situation to racism, I think you're full of it. I really do. Because you don't want to be a black man ever. Not even for a minute. Maybe you want to be a black man as far as sex and body is concerned, but that's just in that moment. You don't want to walk around 24 hours. Not even to mention a lifetime. You don't want that. Because you know that you're just as racist as everybody else, and you're just as opportunistic about being racist as everyone else. And just using racism as a way to get ahead shows us something, because when you're trying to use us as an example of why you're getting held back, while you're doing things to hold us back, that lets us know that it's really not happening to you like that. Peace.